all stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Cato, could you give us prayer, please?
Father, we thank you for your love and your care and your protection over us. We pray that you will give wisdom and guidance and direction, Father, decisions that need to be made, Lord, that we may further into, Lord, what you may have for us in the days and years to come. And we thank you for your guidance. We thank you for the dedication of these that are here tonight. We ask for your blessings in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Ms. Lewis, could we have a roll call?
Green,
Here.
Patrick,
Here.
Gibson,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Swisher,
Here.
Brandt,
Here.
Simmons.
Here.
Adoption of the agenda, has everybody had a chance to look at it? Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second, Green.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Approve a corrected regular session minutes of May 20th, 2025. I need a motion and a second to approve them or correct them.
I'll move to approve. Second. Simmons.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to committee reports. We have Municipal Service and Personnel Committee. That's Council Members Brandt and Green.
Go ahead, we've got the stormwater tip for the month of June. Is your lawn to die for? Know what is in your fertilizer before you treat your lawn. Protect your local waters from stormwater pollution. Where stormwater flows, everything goes. Don't really have too much. I did talk to Randy, and it sounds like they're gonna start the mill and overlay process possibly around June 9th. And this is all weather permitting and subject to many other things too. So I think the way he's talking, it's also gonna be a little better this year. They may come in and do a little mill and then overlay instead of doing the whole mill process and then coming in later and doing the overlay process. That'll work out, I think, better for us instead of you guys having to cone the whole city or the whole overlay process. We can do it a little bit at a time and maybe create a little less disruption on the whole thing. So we'll know more and notify more as we come closer to that date. So other than that, unless anybody has any questions, or Drew, if you've got anything you want to add.
I don't think we've had anything.
Okay.
Just the street program.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have.
That's all you got. Thank you, Councilmember Brandt and Green. Property Finance, Budget, and Audit Committee, Council Members Thompson and Patrick. I have no report. Mr. Patrick?
No, I have nothing. Thanks.
Community Development and Code Committee, Council Members Allen and Simmons.
I have no report.
No report.
Thank you. Public Relations and Public Safety Committee, Council Members Swishers and Gibson.
I have the Marshall Fire Department report. Fires, passenger vehicle fire, one grass fire, dumpster or trash fire, 2, overpressure, rupture, or explosion with no fire, excessive heat, scorch burns, or ignitions, 1, medical assistance, 15, emergency medical service instance, 1, motor vehicle accidents with injury, 5, motor vehicle accident with no injury, 1, taking 1 person from the vehicle, 2 gas leaks, then we have 3 service calls, 2 public service assistance, 2 public services, 1 good intent call, dispatch, 2 dispatch and cancel it en route, 2 authorize controlled burning, 2 false alarms, alarm sounded, 1, smoke detective active, 1, building fires, 1, medical assistance with EMS crew, 1, 500 service call, 1, false alarm or false other calls, 1, smoke detector activation, no fire, 1. That would be it.
Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. Swisher?
I have no report.
Thank you. Moving on to the city administrator's report. Mr. Kerman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a number of comments for you when we get to the 2 ordinances listed below, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
It's been brought up to my attention about the housing development on in the Best Street.
Mhm.
Do you have any information on that?
Certainly, the most recent communication I've had was with an attorney that's associated with an engineer associated with IBTS that reached out and talked to that applicant. Where it was left previously was the stormwater drawings were mostly done but not complete. And so this engineer talked to them, and the applicant indicated to him that they've got a different engineer that's going to rework those plans, and they would be submitting those to IBTS for review.
Okay.
So they're also working with a new plat, so we expect that once there's some feedback there, that we may bring the new plat back through the subdivision advisory process before it would finally come to this council for approval. But we're a ways from that just yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kerman, I'm just curious, the new inspection company that we're contracted with, have you had any feedback from contractors about it? I don't know if any contractors, local contractors have interacted with that, and if you've heard anything about the level of service or anything.
Yeah, I've heard, we've heard from a number of contractors that come in every day at City Hall, and then I was talking with the Mayor Pro Tem, we would like to set a meeting for a week from this Thursday, so that would be the 12th of June, to solicit additional feedback from the contractors. I don't know if IBTS will be at that meeting for sure or not, but we've got a fairly substantial list of items that we've got that we would like some feedback on. And we know that a number of people have brought up important questions, thoughtful questions, and things that we would just like to hear more information from them. So we're going to be advertising that as we finalize the details, but we're tentative for the 12th of June, which is a Thursday night, for that meeting. I can tell you that there's been a number of new projects that have been submitted just since IBTS took over. Of significance is the college is getting ready to rehab the old West Ranch building. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, as dormitory. And so that set of plans hit just a couple days following our last meeting. So they're in the review process for that. I've been getting updates on that. There's also a review that just took place for Mallory Place, which are the big apartments across from the high school. They're getting ready to do a major renovation on that. They did plan review and comments, and then now they will start the inspection process once that work begins. So I'm getting feedback from IBTS on that end of the big projects, and then we're getting comments from people as they walk in or as they have issues. I've had an opportunity to speak with a couple of contractors just on issues that we're trying to work out at the window for them. And everyone's been very patient and understanding, but frustrated, understandably so. And they've been sharing that feedback. But we would like to get a more feedback in a more formal setting with staff at this meeting on the 12th. So there'll be more to come on that in the near future. And we'll make sure that that date and time circulates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kerman. I have no report tonight. Business from the audience, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Any person, resident or non-resident, wishing to address the council may approach the microphone and state their name and comments. If anybody would like to step up.
Good evening. My name is Mike Mills. There's 2 things on the ordinances down here below that our city administrator said he was going to talk about, but I'm not sure whether it's going to be a discussion for us sitting out here or just you back there. So is this the first reading of this ordinance tonight?
Correct.
Okay. I would like to hear what you all have to say, and it would be nice if the second reading got tabled so that we have opportunities to make our comments known to because I just picked this up today at 3:30. So that's just my request, and I did this within 3 minutes, and pretty happy.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak at this time? Just ask.
Mike, which ordinance are you talking about?
The two on the code enforcement under ordinances, both of them.
Oh, both of them, okay,
Yeah, they kind of tie together.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one else? We're good? Moving on down to liquor license. We have Loveless Pizza Tavern, Scott Guthrie, Managing Officer, liquor by the drink with Sunday sales. I need a motion and a second for that to approve a liquor license.
So moved.
Do I have-
Second, Allen.
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? The next one is request by Marshall Cultural Council to suspend section 600.070 G of the Code of Ordinances relating to drinking in public for shopping under the sun on August 2nd and 3rd, 2025. I need a motion and a second for that one. Do I have a motion?
Motion, Gibson.
Second, Green.
All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Down to ordinances. The first one, amend the Code of Ordinances to clarify enforcement authority by including references to the municipal court. I need a motion and a second for that one, to take to a second reading. Is that right?
We
Did I
need to have a
mess up?
first reading.
This was, yeah.
Okay, I need a motion and, oh, would you give the
Yes.
reading? Sorry.
Absolutely. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Marshall, Missouri to clarify enforcement authority by including references to the municipal court.
And I need a motion and a second to take to the second reading.
Well,
Well,
no,
Huh?
we're not doing a second reading tonight. So you just need a,
Oh, okay.
you just need a vote if we approve the first reading.
All right.
The second reading will come 2 weeks from now. So maybe that's I don't know if you realize that, Mike. First reading would be tonight.
Yeah.
Then we have 2 weeks to talk about it with everybody, and then second, okay, yeah.
That was my question.
Okay. But JD, you said you had some stuff to say about these, is that correct?
Yes, whenever y'all are ready for us, so.
Yes, please.
I think we can, it's discussion time before we vote on it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, now's the time, yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. So this first ordinance is, as we were going through the code, looking to, as we discussed last time, looking to move code enforcement cases into the municipal court. Our code has got references to the Board of Code Enforcement for the majority of those processes. We would like to add the reference to the municipal court so that we can pursue both at the same time, or that we can start in municipal court and then only take those cases that involve like a taking of property or something to the code enforcement. And Elizabeth can clarify a little bit about why it's important to have that code reference open up the option of municipal court for us as well.
Sure.
Take that.
Yes, and,
Microphone,
sorry?
microphone.
Oh, thanks. And Chief, please jump in anytime you want to as well. And just to give you some background, it's my understanding that Marshall used to do a lot of code enforcement using the municipal courts and the police department to issue the tickets and then take them through the court system. And we have had lots of discussions regarding how we want to enhance community policing in Marshall and have the police involved with working with the property owners and with me when needed or wanted to help clean up the city. So that, for instance, we would have, it comes to our attention that there could be a grass and weeds issue on a property, or trash, junk and debris, or unlicensed vehicles on yards, that type of thing. That the police could approach the property owner and say, we'd like to let you know that you need to get this cleaned up, please, and you have this period of time to do so. If you get it taken care of, we're done. If they don't, then they could issue a ticket so that that person would have to come to court to address the issue. So that would be like a violation of the ordinances we already have in existence for violating a nuisance. That person would come to court. I could visit with that person, and my plan is to get a sense of what the issue is, and if the person gets it cleaned up by the next court date, then I would dismiss the ticket. Completely nollie pros, meaning dismiss that ticket. And Chief and I have talked, and with Mr. Kerman and others, that, again, our goal is to give people the opportunity to clean things up, but to have a little bit stronger way that we could enforce the code. And I think arguably, this might not even be necessary, that people who are violating the nuisance code now, we already have ordinances that I think arguably we could prosecute in court without doing this, but I wanted it to be very transparent and to clarify that we would have the option of going through municipal court. If we had somebody, like, let's say we have an out-of-state property owner who doesn't show up for court, doesn't do anything, then we would still have the option of having that case come to the Board of Code Enforcement, where if the board found that the nuisance existed, the board could vote to order that the property be abated. In other words, that the city comes in, we clean it up, and then bill the property owner. And that's the way it's been operating in recent years. And that's not always effective. And this way, we are giving the property owners the responsibility of addressing the issue. And then, but we still have that mechanism if we need to come in with the board after they've, in some cases, had the opportunity to go through the court system. We also have a little bit heavier hammer in cases where we need it. And again, my intention is not to be like the mean prosecutor, but to help people. We have found, even when we were doing the board and code enforcement process, we had, a lot of times people wouldn't show up, but some people would show up, and I mean, it broke my heart. Like, we had this lovely elderly man who had had terrible health issues, and his wife had just died, and he said, I want my property to be clean. I'm doing the best I can. I don't have any help. I can't afford to hire somebody right now, but my brother has agreed to come in and help me, but he doesn't live here, and will you give me a little bit more time? So if we find out that situation, if the police finds out about that situation, then they can, what we want to do is tie people in that type of situation to resources. And so Chief is meeting with the Ministerial Alliance and other community organizations that we are planning could come in and help people in that type of a situation. So what we want to do, I kind of think of it like when I was a state prosecutor, some of my colleagues used to kind of tease me and say, Elizabeth, you're not a social worker, you're a prosecuting attorney. But this is kind of how I want to approach it, from the social support, resource providing aspect, but then also having the mechanism of prosecuting the nuisance tickets. And it's not it's a nuisance ordinance violation. So it's a quasi criminal. It's almost more civil really than criminal. We think that this will also keep things moving much more quickly, so that once they're in, as I said, if they do come to a court date, my plan is to visit with them and say, here's what we need you to do, please. Or do you have any obstacles or barriers that prevent you from getting your property cleaned up by this time? And if they say yes, we work together to address that issue. If they say, like, you know, something nasty like, you can't tell me what to do, whatever, we say, okay, then we have the option of issuing an additional ticket. And so somebody who has that type of attitude, or who's an out-of-state property owner and is not taking responsibility, then we can continue to issue those violations, and where appropriate, issue fines. And again, would still have the mechanism of the board if we need to come up and ask the city be approved to abate, meaning go in, fix the issue, and then we bill the property owner, and that goes on as a lien on the property. That was a lot. So,
yeah, and I would
does that
mention.
make sense?
Yeah, well, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go
I would
ahead.
mention as well that the system as we have it now, that pushes all of the code enforcement tickets to the administrative hearing process, is geared so that we can abate the nuisance. The whole reason for the administrative hearing process is because we have an obligation under state law to provide a hearing for somebody, even on trash and weeds, or even on grass and weeds and trash. However, the municipal court, which we have 2 times a month, will satisfy that requirement for a hearing. And then especially in the case of like an out-of-state property owner that just ignores the Board of Code Enforcement, they won't really have the luxury of ignoring the judge. And once we've gotten past that first hearing, if they just continue to let that property slip into non-compliance so that they're not mowing all summer, and we have those, and we just keep reintroducing them back to the Board of Code Enforcement, what can happen is that we, having already satisfied the hearing for that address, can go back in, and we don't have to wait another 10 or 15 days. We can go back in and issue the notice to abate if we're going to abate. On the same time, if the owner says, mow my property all you want and put all the liens on my property you don't want, I don't care, they still have to deal with the judge and the prosecutor, and who is going to say, well, you know, you're not following the municipal code, and that there could be a fine or something like of that nature for them. So this is going to, we believe it's going to speed things up. We believe it's going to allow us more flexibility to hook people up with resources that may need them, that aren't, you know, that aren't wantonly violating the code. And we also think it's going to give us much more teeth to deal with problematic properties and persistent offenders. So, and that's on the first ordinance. Now, we can also get into the second ordinance. That deals with giving people proper notice of this procedure. So we're happy to continue to answer questions on
Any
ordinance
questions on
1
the
or,
board thing?
yeah.
Don't we already have those codes in place in the ordinance now?
Yes, but just in terms of the procedure, the code refers to that the Board of Code Enforcement will be an administrative hearing to address those issues. And this, adding the municipal court, gives us the option of doing either or doing both. So in those situations where, let's say, we have an out-of-state property owner who repeatedly doesn't show up to court or something like that, then we could still bring them in front of the Board of Code Enforcement, and then we could order that the city goes in and does the mowing or whatever it is, or cleans up the yard, picks up the trash, and then bills that owner. So yes, that's already in place in the code, but there are just many references to the Board of Code Enforcement shall do X, Y, Z. So we'll continue to have that option, but this just gives us another option, which again, arguably, it's already there, but this just clarifies. I like being just really open and transparent. Like when somebody looks at I want them to see like, okay, this could go to court or it could go to the Board of Code Enforcement.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Well, yes. It makes sense, but like I said, we already have that code in place. I don't know why we have to add more to this code.
Well, we're changing the procedure of the way we've done it in recent years.
So now if somebody gets a ticket, say the police come and give you a ticket at your property for trash or whatever in your yard, it goes directly to municipal court instead of code enforcement. Is that what we're
To
trying to do?
municipal court, yeah.
It doesn't have to go direct from what I understand.
No,
It's just
and-
opening the door
Yes,
and clarifying verbiage,
yeah,
saying, hey, we can do this already, but from what I understand, this is now just adding that verbiage so that everybody knows there are 2 options. It's kind of vague in the code now to show that there are 2 options, but they can be used. This just shows blatantly to everybody, there's 2 ways to do this, and we're making it very clear.
yeah, now there are multiple references to the Board of Code Enforcement, and the nuisance violations go in front of the board. The board has the power to order abatement and to bill the property owner, and to, if the property owner doesn't pay that bill, to attach that as a lien to the property. And so this would change that procedure. But when I'm saying that, I'm not even, because we were doing this before, like we talked about this today, that we already have these ordinances in place where if someone is violating an ordinance where there's a nuisance, that is a violation under the code that I think arguably the police could address, the boards could address without clarifying this.
So we're
I'd like
saying,
to clarify.
arguably we could,
But this makes
but
it-
there's some gray area,
Yeah,
and this clarifies that,
And I want to
Yeah.
be very open that this is what we plan to do.
Right.
And that this is what the procedure
right,
will be. But that this gives us very clearly either option or both options. Because I think in some cases, I anticipate we may go through the court system, and if somebody's not responsive and not showing up and is out of state, then we do want the option of being able to bring it to the board in those cases to order abatement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Most people would go.
I think when the,
Sorry.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I just had one question. So most of the violations would just be resolved in municipal court, starting after this ordinance? Like,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
I suspect that what's going to happen is that you're gonna find that with this new approach, that the majority of these cases, the majority of them now, I think, are getting abated by the owner. And that's really the shift we're trying to accomplish, is that the city's not gonna be the one that takes care of your property unless it's really an extenuating circumstance, that we really want property owners to take care of their property. That when these changes were made to the code to address this through the administrative hearing process, the reason for that was because cities were having to do more to demonstrate that they were giving somebody due process under this code. And so the administrative hearing function ensures that there's a hearing once a month for everybody that's gotten cited under the code. The problem is what cities are recognizing, and when I talk to my colleagues about this in other places, what they're echoing is that process leaves the door wide open for like an absentee landlord to just ignore the city. Because eventually what will happen is that they won't take any action, they won't respond, we'll mow the grass, and then they'll be right back on that list the next week. And then we'll go through the entire process again. They'll mow the grass on day 15, and then we're right back, and we do that all summer long with certain properties. What'll happen now is we might still choose to abate that property, but that property owner is also gonna have to answer to the judge and say, why are you ignoring the municipal code? Do you wanna take care of your property, or do you want the city to maintain your property for you? But our
Be
goal,
subject to
yeah.
getting fined.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to
and they can
interrupt
be
you.
fined, yeah.
Yeah. But then we have the discretion, like I said, if somebody takes care of it, I will dismiss the ticket. So
Right.
like for our, if somebody lives in Marshall and has some issue, if they need help for some reason, we wanna try to get that person help. If, our goal is
Right,
to
yeah.
say, and I just went to a training a couple weeks ago for the municipal courts, and I had a conversation with a judge, not in this jurisdiction, not in Saline County, and he was telling me what he says to the people who come to court for violating the nuisance ordinances, that he says like, hey, do you want to be in charge of your property, or do you want the city to be in charge of your property? You're here because you're not taking care of your property, but we're giving you the opportunity to take care of your property. And if there's some obstacle to that, let us know. Do you want to take care of your property? Yes, and like that's taking care of a huge percentage of their problems. And it keeps the ball rolling and the timeline rolling, because if you give it till the next court date, and if they've made progress, like we'll have the discretion to be like, hey, this woman is working on this. We're gonna, like, we're not quite there yet, so we're gonna keep the case going, but we're gonna extend it to the next court date. Somebody who's made no progress, we might say, sorry, buddy, we've given you a chance and we're not seeing any effort at all, so now we need to take this step.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Just a procedural question. And I like this. I mean, I think it's good, but would it be something that a person could resolve just with a phone call to you? I mean, in other words, instead of having to take the day off work and go to court and
Oh,
come talk to.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can help with those.
I'm doing that now for
Okay.
Yeah.
non-municipal stuff. I have spent so much time on the phone talking about dogs barking, talking about, I had a young man who had a ticket for having an expired license, and he had some medical issues, and I talked to his mother, and he's gotten his license not expired anymore, it's refreshed and good to go, and so I dismissed that ticket. He does not have to show up for his court date coming up. So I'm already doing
Great.
that, and that's my practice, is to try to reach out where it's appropriate. And I tell people, you don't have to talk to me, but if you want to, here's my goal. And that, yes, so somebody would be able to address that even before they get to me, if they want to talk to the police officer who's notifying about the issue. That the police officer will also have that discretion to be like, this isn't somebody that we need to even write a ticket to.
And
So
something else,
we're gonna have a timeline in place, and also, Chief, and we have been talking about, like, we will have the property reviewed before the court date as well, so that we'll know if they're making progress or if they're just sitting on it and not doing anything about it.
Something else I think I heard said was that this might speed up things because instead of once a month, there's 2 a month
Yes, we have
And-
2 court dates a month, and
versus 1 board hearing thing a month.
yes,
Yeah.
So we could actually like,
yeah. And I will be available in between those dates as well to have those conversations and
okay.
clarify things where we can.
All right. Guess we need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance.
Approve the first reading?
The first
First
reading.
Thank you.
Second, Brant?
Need roll call, please?
Brant,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Paprick,
Yes.
Gibson,
No.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher.
Yes.
And in 2 weeks, we'll revisit this, right? Okay. The next one is amend the Code of Ordinances to authorize notice of posting on property. JD, you want to speak about that?
Yes, the notice requirement, there's a couple of thresholds for, notifying an owner that their property is, in violation. And what we're seeing is that we're using registered mail, which has a cost to it. But what we're seeing is that the worst violators, just all that registered mail comes back. And certainly if there's somebody like out of state, oftentimes that registered mail comes back. We have the option of posting the physical property, and that will meet the requirement, the threshold for grass, trash, and tall weeds for posting, so that even a property owner can't, from out of state, can't say, well, I'm never there, and I don't hire anybody to check in on my property, so how was I supposed to know unless you send me a registered letter, which I'm gonna ignore when it comes anyway. So what this will do is this will satisfy the notice requirement in the state statutes that this property is found to be in violation. Do you want to take it from there?
I think that's a great explanation, and this is common practice, that a lot of other municipalities do this. And so it basically just means that a sign or a notice can be posted on the property. We already do this some for, like, some of the board adjustment stuff, that the notice would be posted on the property as well as going out and registered mail for, dangerous buildings, things like that. But this, again, will speed things along. It will, we don't have to have this issue of like, what was the certified mail card signed, when was it returned, was it not returned, et cetera, et cetera. We also, the research that I've done indicates that this can be really powerful, again, for communities. And so that, like, when you see a neighbor, like, you're irritated because somebody who lives in your neighborhood has a whole bunch of junky yard stuff or super long grass. This has happened in my neighborhood before, and people complain about it, kind of thing. And, but this will be a visual to the neighborhood too, that the city's addressing this, and that, the property owner is on notice. And again, this is common practice in many places, and, I'll speak for myself, like, I don't wanna embarrass people or humiliate them, but I think it's a really effective way to, tell that person, like, clean your stuff up, please, and here's a number you can call if you have a problem, kind of thing. And, again, we will handle this in a similar way. We were talking with the court issues, that our goal is to have the property owner clean up that property, whether it's picking up their trash and junk in the yard, or whether it's getting the yard mowed. And again, it's come to our attention in some of our Board of Code Enforcement hearings before, that some people do have, like, real struggles and reasons, and really want it to be proud of their yards and to clean up their yards, but may not have the resources. And so, again, we will use our resources to help those people where we can, people in need. We want to be of service, but then it's also a powerful enforcement tool. Like, this property, we see you, and we're gonna address it. And then we also don't have to, have all this stuff about the dates the letters were sent, if the card was returned, if it wasn't, it takes a lot of administrative time as well.
Yeah, and fortunately, yeah, it really eliminates the possibility of an absentee landlord saying, I never received notice, therefore your entire process against me is flawed.
Yeah.
In this case, we can document that you received proper notice because the physical address was posted.
Right.
Well, but I mean, if they're out of town, I assume if they live out of state or something, you're gonna send them a letter to,
Well, we
They may
don't
never
have to.
see
I
it.
think in some cases, certainly if there's a taking of property involved, we would want to send a registered letter as well as physically posting the property. Like if we're going to remove a pile of bricks that may or may not have value or something from the front yard, we may want to send a letter in that case too. But for grass and weeds, that property owner has an obligation to the city of Marshall and to the neighbors in that neighborhood to maintain that property. If they're sitting back in another state saying, well, how was I supposed to know that the grass is 16 inches long? Well, that's your responsibility. You're a property owner in Marshall, you need to keep tabs on your property. So the physical posting, we're getting those letters back anyway. I mean, I can tell you that almost without exception, the persistent offenders that live out of the area, and some that live in town too, all that registered mail is coming back.
And
So-
some of the owners are LLCs.
Yeah.
And so we're sending the stuff to a registered agent who may or may not have anything to do with the property in a direct way. And so on the sign too, it's gonna say, it'll have information about the hearing. So it's not, again, like, I wanna be fair and I wanna give notice that you have a right to a hearing and that will be on the sign. But this just gives us the option of posting notice on the property.
So, yeah, go
And again,
ahead,
this
go
is-
ahead.
well,
This is
I mean,
not unique.
for one thing, I'm gonna suggest that for out-of-town people, you still send a letter to. Just 'cause, I mean, if they're not gonna drive by it, or they may never find out if all we do is post it on the property. I understand you're getting a lot of registered mail back and stuff. I'm just gonna suggest that we send a letter along with the posting. Second question though is this like just a small piece of paper that goes on the front door? Is this a yard sign? What are we?
There's some question about, we're still kind of working through some of those details. I'm not sure we want people posting on the doors. So more than likely, it'll be posted right in that 8 feet that the police can step into from the curb. That's probably the safest place to put it because there's no question that officer has the right to stand there and post that sign. It doesn't get them up on the porch, it would preclude them getting involved with a dog that might be inside or something like that. And then the size of the sign would largely be up to us. There's no prescription. Different communities use everything from the ones that you can read from the street to the small placards that are like 8 by 12.
Okay, follow-up question. Is that gonna be the first contact, or the first telling of the property owner that there's a problem? Or could an officer maybe reach out, just knock on the door first before you? Look, I
Yes.
understand that for
And
persistent.
that's what's happening now. That's what's
Okay.
gonna happen in the interim between reads while you all are considering or while we're perfecting these changes. The officer can do a warning, but what's important is that then when that property owner when the problem property owner keeps reoffending and things like that, we won't need to continually, we will have to post the property again, but we won't have to continually rebook a hearing as if it's a new violation every single time. We can just keep them in the system.
May interrupt you. And here's a perfect example for you to understand. One of the properties that we dealt with was a vacant lot. We deal a lot with lots. So we had an owner out of the state of California. So we have a name and an address. We don't have a telephone number, we don't have anything else. So we spend a large amount of time attempting to locate these people or contact them. So by doing this, we can mark the property and say this property's given notice, and then the neighbors know that they have it and they can take care of it. Because I informed the city administrator, the first day we dealt with it, 4 out of the 6 properties we were dealing with they didn't live in the state of Missouri. So you had owners that had lots that are this tall and they want to say, well, I didn't know my grass is growing. Well, it's summertime, grass grows, and nobody's making an attempt to mow it. So that's one of the reasons we talked about doing it is we're spending hours upon hours trying to locate these people that don't even live within
within City of Marshall or State of Missouri.
I think that's great. The only thing I wanted to avoid is if you have a little old lady or old man that can't mow their yard for whatever
Totally
reason.
agree.
You don't
If it's a
wanna-
house, we go knock on the door.
Okay.
If it's a property that has a house, we knock on the door, and then we attempt to find out who the person is, and then we attempt to get a phone number for them. So
But I
we
can give you
always, we always attempt to make contact first.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in support of the point that you're making, of those couple of property owners that were actually located here in Marshall, again, the PD recognized the name that had, one of the names had just appeared in the obituary recently. So obviously, that person is deceased. Well, they did a little bit of legwork and found not an heir to the title. That's a whole different type of a search, but just the next of kin, and said, hey, we realize you guys are dealing with a lot. We just want to let you know that the yard is already in violation. Of course, we're going to get somebody over there to mow it. We've just got our hands full. And this will take care of itself. That's a perfect example of a little bit of extra footwork will yield a better result. We're going to get that property mowed without having to wait until we have a hearing of the Board of Code Enforcement, which could be up to 30 days away, so.
So is sending a letter that gets returned not counted as making contact?
It counts as notice.
It does count as notice.
If we were involved in a taking of property, though, like where we were condemning the structure or demoing something or taking a lot of stuff out of the yard, then I mean, my experience has been that it doesn't, and that we would actually
No, we
probably.
go the extra mile
Yeah,
with that.
we would actually go to personal service at that point.
Sure, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying this posting a sign thing has come into play a lot from what I understand because we're getting letters back. So why aren't we counting that as notice and just sending it on down the line? Why do we need a sign in the yard? I mean, we got your letter back.
Yeah, well,
We-
I mean,
we
I just
try-
think that in terms of them maybe making a case before the judge, as I was never notified, they would simply say to the
think it's
judge,
more effective,
I just
yeah.
didn't get it,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
like the message that it sends to the neighborhood, to the, and not just anybody, like that, we're addressing this.
We see it.
Nobody knows how, I mean, if you all had any idea how many, these letters, and it's, and nobody knows. It just, I think sometimes the perception is, well, what's the city doing about it?
Okay.
Well, this is gonna show that the city's doing something about it, but again, we're gonna treat people with respect and help them where warranted.
Okay.
But there's no argument about like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't check my mail or whatever, that this can, I mean, and that's, and again, this is very common practice in a lot of municipalities, that's how they do notice for for everything related to property.
Yeah, and the Board of Code Enforcement, just like a judge, they're human. If somebody comes in and says, I didn't receive notice, everybody's going to be hard pressed to take any further action because everyone's concerned that there was a misstep and they failed to be notified, which is essential. So, yeah, it'll just eliminate that as a excuse either in front of the judge or in front of the Board of Code Enforcement.
Okay.
Do we have a lot of these cases on the books right now?
Not at the moment. No, not, right, you mean grass and weed cases? and-
Yeah, whatever case we're trying to get figured out here so we can post these yards or lots or whatever.
We
Is there
had
a bunch of them? in
Some that
play?
were on the docket that again, it was like they had to, and like there's this one like sweet little lady who's coming in every month and she's making progress and she's actually gone above and beyond in a lot of ways, but still has some issues. And her mom died, so she was also trying to take care of her mom's property.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something we had in front of the board, and she was coming in every month. That's a situation where, I would not prosecute that case in municipal court, and I would have those conversations with her, and
Yeah.
she and I do visit, and it's,
Yeah, I think it was the May docket had all returns. People that had been in front of us multiple times, that had extenuating circumstances, that were making progress. There were no new violations on that one. So, but we will have them. They will be out there. But our goal is to intercept most of these early in the process through this early contact with PD, so,
Well, I know last year, Mr. Cook would say there was 47 violations, and
yeah.
so I didn't know if that was starting to be a big issue already, or it's just.
It will be. In many cases, those would be remedied. The building inspector would follow up, and those people would remedy those right before court. And so in this case, if they get a notice, if they get an actual posting, and then they remedy it, the prosecutor will just
I can dismiss
delete
it,
the
and
ticket.
they won't have to come, whereas they were having to come before the board,
Yeah,
they get their hearing
because
date,
we'd have to
yeah.
remove them from the docket at that
and it'd be
point.
that
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Okay.
So this should actually help the people who are,
Yeah, I think it's helpful for the public maybe to understand with the posting requirement that people say, well, the city didn't mow it fast enough. It will never, the city will never be able to abate something off of somebody's property any faster than 10 days and more like 15. And that's state statute. However, I think some of these things that we're getting stuck in the administrative system, we're dragging out to 60 or 90 days because that's only 2 or 3 hearings. And that's when the public starts to really ask, is the city even doing anything? Because they don't see any kind of physical posting on the property. They don't know that there's been registered mail received or anything like that, so.
Okay.
I move to approve the first reading.
We do need to have a reading.
Yeah, yes, yeah, go ahead,
Oh,
read it
sorry.
first. No, you're good.
An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Marshall, Missouri to authorize notice by posting on the property.
I need a motion and a second to approve the first reading.
I move to approve the first reading.
Second, Green.
All in favor by saying aye.
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 Any-
Excuse me,
Roll
Your Honor,
call.
we'll need a roll call.
You know what? Sorry. I need a roll call, please, Miss Lewis.
Green,
Yes.
Paprick,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Appropriation. Miss Lewis, would you give the first reading, please, by title only?
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
I need a motion and a second.
I move to take this to a second reading.
Second, Patrick.
Miss Lewis, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Gibson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Paprick.
Yes.
Miss Lewis, could I have a second reading by title only?
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
I need a motion and a second to approve,
I make a motion we approve?
Second, Allen.
and I have a roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Paprick,
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
All right, is there any other council business we need to address at this time?
One question for JD might know this, or Dan. When was the airport gonna get bailed for grass? Do you know when that first cut has to be?
Randy?
It's 2 feet or something.
15th of June, he came in and paid last week, so he just went now, anytime.
I was like, man, it looked like it's ready to go. So, okay, cool, thank you.
That answer? Thank you.
I have a question. Do we get another Ward 4 council member at some point?
Good question.
I'm sorry?
Do we get another, a council member to replace Craig?
At this point, Craig is functioning as mayor pro tem. Councilman Thompson is functioning as mayor pro tem. You may want to discuss amongst yourselves at some point if you want to appoint somebody to the vacated seat of mayor, which would run through that would terminate with the first election in 2026, so that'd be April 26th. And then you would have to appoint somebody to whichever seat is vacated if you appoint somebody from this council to that board, yeah. So your next step would actually be to deal with the vacancy in the office of mayor, and then deal with the vacancy on whichever seat takes that, if that's the direction you choose to go. But I would recommend that you all probably have a conversation, or at least designate somebody, or the mayor pro tem to have a conversation with the city clerk and the city attorney about that process. Yeah. I mean, you're welcome, you can make the appointment really at any time, it's just, it's your call, it's up to you all.
I think it's something that we need to address, because we're sitting here short one councilman. We're gonna run into vote issues, quorum issues, if we just sit here with 7 councilmen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we give it some thought. It's nothing we gotta do right now, but, yeah, I think we should kinda address that.
Any other business? I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Allen.
Second, Simmons.
Second.
Someone second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Perfect.